All right, brother, we're rolling. Here with Noah Stauffer. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. We were just saying before how tabbing this episode down was a lot easier than tabbing down Breneman,
Yeah,
AB.
well, I
So,
got to clear something up before we start here. Within the first probably 5 minutes of the podcast, he already threw me under the bus for his scheduling problems. I don't know who that's on. We're big accountability people, but it's certainly not on me. So I just want to preface this episode with saying that, and hopefully, I'm going to clip this and send it to Adam, and just know that that scheduling issue, not on me. So
love it. That's got to be the
yeah,
best clip that might come out of this
I hope so.
podcast. Who knows?
I may put some ad money behind it. I mean, get it out there more.
And the podcast is ended. There we go.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, listen, man, pumped to catch up with you a little
Yeah, I'm
bit. I
excited about
know
this.
you were a big reason why we were able to tab that episode down with AB, get it done in person, and it was great, man.
Yeah,
He's got a
that
lot
was
of
one
good
of
stuff,
his
and
that was one of his favorite pods he was ever on, and we got, as you know and see, I think we're actually posting a clip from it tonight, so we're getting a lot of good content from it, and we used it for a long time, and I think you crushed it with him, and he really enjoyed it.
awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm just looking forward to hearing your story, and because you're the engine behind a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's not easy, I'm sure, and there's a lot that goes into it. So
Yeah.
I'm curious just to hear. Like, I know you. So first, you were a college basketball player for a bit. Is that right?
I would I would like put a pause on that, not big time, but I played a little bit at like a branch campus, so I guess you would call me a college athlete, but definitely
Okay.
didn't play at the highest level like Mr. Breneman, but you know, I was still a college athlete on the team. Yeah, I played college basketball at Penn State Hazleton, and then had a very long road to get to Adam, which was only 3 years, but it felt like a long time between those 2 points. But yeah, I'm definitely ready to dive into it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So then, where did you start out of school? What did you get into first?
Yeah, so out of school, I trying to remember exactly. Interned at one of Gary Vee's companies, 1:37 p.m. Just as a graphic design intern and social intern. I worked there for a 3 month internship. From there, I took a job at J1S Talent, who was acquired by Wasserman. I believe it was last year. I left before they were acquired, but very excited for them, and that was really cool. So I worked there for about maybe a year doing social for some of the clients that they had, and then from there, I was there for about a year, and then after that, I launched my own agency where I happened to meet Adam. This was 2022. I met Adam in August of 2022. He was one of my first clients, and I had two or three others that I was working with at the time. But yeah, I've been working with Adam since August 2022, and went full time with him. Dropped like my client service business in June of 2023 to go all in on his stuff, and it was a great decision. I'm very very happy I made it.
That's great, man. Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like working? So you worked with one of Gary Vee's companies? Is that what you said?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. What was that experience like? I'm a Gary Vee fan. He's always. I mean, he's like the content king. That guy. But
Yeah,
what was it like working for him?
Gary's the reason I got into content anyway. But I have to give a shout out to Tyler Schmidt. I actually met him uh, end of 2019 is when we kind of like started our relationship, and 2 3 years later, he's the reason I had my internship and where I was, and gave me that opportunity, which I'm super grateful for. And he really took a chance on me because I was a decent designer, but I didn't do it. I definitely got better under the help of him, Michael Koloka, who's now a designer at VFriends, Brandon Shammy, who works on Gary's content team. He was I reported to him essentially. So I learned a ton under them, and it was very fast paced. And I think it really prepared me to go more into the content game because at the time I was really just a designer. But then that really propelled me into like actually learning that like there's a science behind these platforms and how they work. So that's kind of what propelled me more into social than just design. And I knew I didn't want to just be a designer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I knew that I had more interest than just doing graphics all day. So it really allowed me to further my career in that field.
Sure. So what is some of the science behind these platforms?
First, I mean, the main one that I worked on was Instagram. Instagram has changed quite a bit from when I was there. It was a lot of static swipes, which is just like a kind of a graphic to a swipe video or other graphics. Now, ever since TikTok came around even more I was in 2021. So TikTok was a thing, but definitely not what it is now. And it's more so evolved into trying to be more of a TikTok platform. But what's working really well now on Instagram is like single images and then the swipe thing I was talking about that was working way before. Uh, I personally believe the reason is because it's more shareable than a reel sometimes, and you get people to stay on the piece of content more. Because if you think about scrolling it through a reel, you basically have 3 seconds. Whereas, like, if you have a good hook in the copy of the on the graphic that it is, and they see that, then they swipe over to see the video. That's already probably more than 3 seconds, and they have already watched the reel. So you have more chance for them to be on the piece of content longer. And obviously, reels are definitely shareable, but in my opinion, I think that the swipes are performing better for at least Adam's account right now than some of the reels that we even do. And that goes into also kind of our double dipping strategy of like we post the swipe to a video or a swipe to a graphic, and then we post the reel usually the next day so we can get views for on both the reels feed and the home feed on Instagram.
Gotcha.
That's my main
Yeah.
spiel on Instagram and kind of like the science behind that platform, I think.
Right. Right. So the algorithm and everything, right? I mean, I feel like that's something you always hear, and I don't
Yeah.
like. I don't know. I don't. It's. I mean, obviously, there's an algorithm because you're getting ads that are showing up on
Right.
your. Like,
Right.
how in tune are you with that? I mean, obviously, you're in the analytics part of it. I'm sure
Yeah.
with Adam and just on top of that. But yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
First of all, nobody knows the algorithm, and if they say that, they're lying to you because no one knows it. But I think that the main thing that comes down to analytics and like growing on Instagram is just testing stuff. Like, if you, Gary always says, watch what I do, not what I say. So, like, if you go on his Instagram, you'll see a lot of swipes, a lot of quote graphics, a lot of like single images, more so than you'll see reels now. And that's a testament to that strategy of like swipes are working on Instagram. And yes, if you really pay attention to Gary's content, you may be able to figure that out. But that also comes along with like we were testing when Adam was doing some mid-form YouTube videos that were like 10, 15 minutes long. We were testing swipes on those, and those were overperforming in 2023, and I believe the beginning of that year. So I think it's a matter of just testing all the time, and we try to do that at least once a day. If we can't do it, a few times a week at a minimum.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Gotcha. Okay. The one. So I was just going back through some of your content too before we were talking about this, and I think it was on your page that you were talking about the post that Adam put out about kind of changing up some of the content. I think it was about his like it was his something his dad said, right? It was what like successful people are
Yeah.
willing to do what unsuccessful people won't.
Yeah.
How often are you, because he's just strictly most of the time just college football content. How often are you trying different things like that? Because that was interesting, I thought.
I think as often as we can. We also like if we think something is shareable, like that is a really good barometer of like if we would share this with our friends, our parents, significant others, however you would say that. Like if you think if we're watching a full podcast, like when we found that clip, I think I don't know if Adam texted it to me or whatever, but when we did that, he said he said that in the clip about unsuccessful people will do, you know the clip. Sorry, I'm rambling here. He shared that to me, and him, and the videographer and editor Thomas all thought it was a very shareable clip, and we wanted to just test and see what it would do. So on that clip, that's something we may put out once a month, if that, because it's not, like you said, really in his niche. But I think that's something that like, oh, it's interesting to us. Maybe it'll be interesting to others. And I think that's always something that's like, you should always try out if it's interesting to multiple people, either on your team or in your circle or whoever you surround yourself with.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, because if it's interesting to you, then sometime, because I feel like maybe where you can get in trouble with that, and dude, I don't know, I'm still learning some of this stuff myself with putting out a podcast, but I feel like if you're trying to make something just to so that other people listen to it, maybe it won't hit as much as something like that, where it's like, all right, people can actually resonate with that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Correct.
yeah, that's cool. So one thing we were talking a little bit about, and I want to give you the chance to just
Hmm.
share everything that you've learned from working with Adam at this point, but
Hmm.
the founder led content, if you
Yeah.
could just go into that a little bit and just share one, I guess what that is, and then maybe why it's important right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason with founder-led content, or the main point, is that just like people want to buy from people. Like the best example I think of is like Airbnb, right? Brian Chesky is not as big as the Airbnb brand to a lot of people, but on social, he has more distribution on his Instagram and especially on his Twitter than Airbnb does. Like if you go look at a product update that I think they do them twice a year, he will get more views, more impressions on his tweet about the product update than Airbnb will. So you as the founder need to be ahead of the content that you as the founder need to lead the brand in a way that you have the distribution and the attention because you're a person and have a face then the brand doesn't. So like the hat that I'm wearing, Siegelman Stable, this was started by Max Siegelman, and he had a ton of distribution. Like he doesn't have a huge personal brand on Instagram, but it all started with him. Well, it started with his dad, but it's the hat brand started with him on Instagram just organically, and using his distribution from his network was able to grow Siegelman Stable from just this hat brand to it actually meaning something to the people in Max's circle.
Yeah. Okay. So then, yeah, then how does that, like, where can people improve with that? I guess, like, what are some examples of brands where you're like, all right, maybe the founder should be in front? Because when I think of, just trying to think, like
Mm-hmm.
the Nikes of the world, or no, I
Right.
mean, I guess that's led by more so athletes, not necessarily a founder, but
Yeah.
versus what AB's doing, it's his
Right.
face
Even
that's
even even
all
Adam
over
with College
everywhere.
Sports Co. Like
Yeah, right.
he has brought them deals, I believe, just because of the brand that he has built and the authority and credibility that he has in the space. That's another perfect example of like founder led content. So I'm glad you brought that up. But another brand that I think I'm wearing right now, Minted New York, Marcus Milione on TikTok. Like he has completely taken that over. Now it's a little bit different because Siegelman Stable has Max's name as like his last name, Siegelman, on it. But Minted New York is starting with Marcus, but can evolve into more than just him. But it all starts with the content that he makes and uses his distribution to bring obviously like money into the company. Like if he didn't have his distribution, you'd probably never even hear of this unless they're running a crazy amount of ads. But like you want to build brand over just run ads all the time. So that's like another Adam, Marcus, Max, like all examples of like kind of that founder led content.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do you think that's just going to become more prominent? Is especially through social media, and because when I hear distribution, like, so I work, my day job is insurance, and it's called insurance distribution, but that's not social media driven. That's more so just relationships. But like, where do you see that going? I guess in the future with brands and just distributing, is it going to be a lot through TikTok, Instagram, that type of thing? What are
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts on
definitely
it?
think Instagram and TikTok, the best one you could do is YouTube, for sure, because your audience is more bought in on long form video than they are on short form, and it's easier to work your brand or whatever angle you're trying to propose if you're doing a deal with someone. But it's mostly going to be with kind of like what Adam does with College Sports Co., where was a creator. They partnered with him. Obviously, he's more than just a creator, but they partnered with him, and they got massive distribution from him. So it was like it's going to be someone, the founder, if they're not doing the content themselves, they're going to have to partner with someone that has the distribution because that's the only way you're going to hear about their product anymore, unless they have like innovated in a white space that nobody has even touched and somehow do that. That's a way, but it's either going to be founder led content or the founder partnering with a creator to get the distribution that they have built up on social.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's interesting. So YouTube, because that's
Hmm.
it's funny because I didn't even start posting these on YouTube until probably, geez, I don't know, episode 40 or 35 or 40. Like
Hmm.
like it took me a while, and
Yep.
there wasn't even really a reason behind it. It was just because I didn't know, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, what is it about YouTube that is different? You think from Instagram or TikTok? Why do you want to be on
Um,
there?
Yeah, I think with YouTube, you're more bought into the people that you follow on that platform because you're giving them more of your attention. Like if you're on Instagram and you see a reel in 3 seconds, you're swipe. If you see someone that you follow and it's like, oh, it's a cool piece of content, and then you keep going. But like YouTube, you're usually sitting down or you're laying down or you're doing something where you're watching them for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, like hour-long podcasts. Like you're more bought in and they have built more brand affinity with you than just on TikTok. And on the monetization side of it, it's easier to integrate a brand partnership into YouTube because you have more time. So like if you're doing if you're partnering with someone on a podcast, it's easier to implement the ad 30 minutes in when they're already in love or really love the guest that's on and they're loving the conversation. Like, yeah, they may skip through the ad, but at least like they're still going to retain through the rest of the video at least. So it's easier to build brand affinity on YouTube long term than it is on Instagram and TikTok. I mean, like you look at it, what are people promoting on social? Like if they want to push someone somewhere, it's a newsletter or YouTube. Newsletter, I think, is even better than YouTube because you actually own the audience. But
Mhm.
YouTube, usually, like you're trying to get people more bought into you and the long form content. So I think newsletter and YouTube are probably like the top of the food chain in terms of like trying to retain your audience long term.
Right. It's a pitch for your newsletter right there. Let's go.
Yeah, come on, go
Go
subscribe.
subscribe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the
that
pivot there.
that's cool. Where would you where would you start? Like say Adam came to you today and was like, "Hey man, I want to build my brand. I want to maybe start a YouTube channel or a
Mhm.
podcast." What would be the things that you would suggest him do right now, knowing what you know?
So the first thing, it would depend on if they have a social platform and which platform it is. So like Instagram, TikTok, if you have a presence there, cool. We're gonna double down on that presence and like create even more content from it. If they don't have a platform already, I would honestly start with, and I've told people this before, like go get on a podcast. Like go, especially if you're a former athlete, just like this podcast where you have former athletes on. There's so many athletes that want to create content on social that but they don't know where to start. And everybody loves talking about themselves. So go get on a podcast for 30 minutes, an hour, like however long, and get 5, 10 really good clips that you could use and start pushing on social. And then by that time, hopefully you can either develop an audience based on some of those clips, or if you're blessed enough, have a team around you that at least consult you on what you're doing. If I was to start from scratch and I didn't want to go on a podcast, I would go find someone that worked on a personal brand team and at least pick their brain on what you could do, because that goes from how the platforms work to how do I do a green screen? Like green screen's an easy lift too, like a podcast that you could weigh in on a topic, or all the way down to script writing, where like you can throw into Chat GPT, like give me a rough script based on this and this, whatever your niche is. And now, especially for former athletes, and you have authority in the space, as in like you hear Adam say it in every video. People make fun of him, but it works because people remember him. Like I was a former 5-star recruit and Power Five and youngest Power Five coach in college football. Everybody makes fun of him, but like that's his authority. That's why people will listen. It's because like if someone who didn't play college football, who didn't play high school football, nor was even a 5-star recruit, makes a video, it's like, okay, who is this person? Like they didn't even know what they're talking about. But then you add that layer of authority, it builds your retention in the video, and it also gets people to say, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Like, and I love football, I'll follow. So I think it's both of those things.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's great when I mean it's cool. Yeah, he opens up all those. It's like I was a former 5-star recruit at Penn
Yeah,
State,
yeah.
and then you're hooked. You don't want to listen to what he's got to say next.
Especially if you're a Penn State fan, and even if you,
Oh
I
yeah,
was talking to a former football player today about it. Like if you were blessed enough to play at a high level, like example, Penn State, you have audience already. Like, go build with that base audience, start talking about the team that's currently playing and like the year that they're in. And then you could build it up from there and go national, like go try and get broadcast gigs, like, et cetera. Like, building from the audience that you currently have, if you played at that highest level, is the best thing you could do because you have leverage with them already.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely, man. So that's kind of a good segue too, because you're talking about content for athletes after their playing days.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that I know you're exclusively working with Adam at this point. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're like, why else would it be important for an athlete to build a brand versus just going to get a job at a big company?
Well, first of all, it's probably a little bit more fun. But besides that, I think that they have stories to tell that nobody else can tell. Like, if you're, for example, I was scrolling on TikTok the other day and I saw Bill Belichick and Julian Edelman telling a story. And like, that's amazing. Like, I'm going to watch that. Like, they have stories to tell that people probably have never even heard and that are very, very interesting that only they could tell. Even if that's like, you played at Notre Dame, like you have that little audience you have that audience at Notre Dame that remembers you. If you balled out there, like, you can create content and leverage what you did there for 1 to 4 or 5 years. And it could set you up to like make content and land brand deals for however long you want to do this thing. If you're bought into it.
Yeah, definitely. What about podcasts? I mean, I know that's something hopefully we can talk about a little bit too, is just like Adam's podcast. And I listened to a ton of his preparing for that interview with him.
Yeah.
And it's really good, man. It's cool. I just forget who I was talking to about this, but like, it's cool to have, it was Carl Blum, who I just had on. He played baseball at Duke. And
he had Adam on as well.
He had him on the podcast.
Yeah,
we made that connection. But he was like, I like how it's cool that the cameras almost start rolling when you step into the room, and it's just like an easy segue into the conversation almost.
Yep. You're talking about Adam specific, correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit harder to do on Riverside.
Adam, that is actually, I vividly remember when Adam interviewed Coach Franklin, and he does this for like all the podcasts that he does in person. Like, he is extremely, extremely adamant about having those cameras rolling before the guest is even there. Like, for like, if like, oh, he's coming down the hallway, you turn them all on. They usually try and get the interaction of them dapping up, whatever, and then sitting down. Like, he wants to be as conversational as possible, which I think makes a ton of sense and is it feels not like, okay, you ready? Let's go now. Hey, how you doing? It's more like, let's just sit down, chop it up, and have fun.
Yeah, definitely. So the college sports company, you're going to break into other sports almost too. Like, there's Adam's got the football part of it, and then like, what if there's somebody with basketball or baseball? I feel like there's so many opportunities.
I don't touch College Sports Co. as much as I do Adam's personal brand, but I believe from what I know, that they are trying to go just after full athletic departments, because Adam has college football on lock. But I think they're trying to attack collectives and athletic departments, both of them maybe, and trying to really attack all of the sports, however many they have at each school.
Sure. Yeah, Louisville. We were talking about that. Yeah, Dan Furman, who we talked about a little bit. Yeah. There you go.
Guy's a beast.
So, what about maybe just I just want to backtrack for a second, because you could have also taken a job and just, I don't know what was your major in school?
It was, I honestly don't remember. I honestly didn't even finish
that
school.
Might be a good, all right.
Yeah. So, I don't even remember, but
right. Good for you then. Yeah.
So I think I was undecided for like 2 years, and then I think I went into like some type of design. It wasn't graphic design, but I don't remember, something that I didn't finish, but yeah.
But so you were saying, you're like, yeah, man, I can always fall back on a job almost, but you wanted to give this a risk.
Yep.
Where does that come from? You know, like, you just... like put
Honestly,
yourself
I
out
don't
there or
know.
what?
I
Yeah.
think just like the people that, especially like kind of Gary's content that I've followed for a long time, and like he's very big on taking risk now. Uh, so I think that like at the end of the day, I could always fall back and get some type of job. Now I don't know who's hiring without a degree, but whatever. But I wanted to at least, and that was my mindset when starting the agency that I had, um, like take the risk now because like what is like why not, like what am I going to lose besides like 3 or 4 years of trying something that I want to try when in like when I'm 30, 31, 32, like maybe a family, kids, like actual like true responsibility, when like now it's kind of just like me and my girlfriend, and like why not try it now. Basically it was like that was the whole mindset, is like why not now.
Yeah, man, definitely. I agree with that. Yeah. Not everybody does that though. I don't know, because it's easier to go a safer route and be like, all
Yeah,
right, and
for
then you
sure.
start picking up, like you were saying, you start picking up different things along the way. That's what this guy Ryan Hawk was saying to me. You know Ryan at all? It's
I do
AJ Hawk's
not
brother.
actually.
He's got a good podcast, but he was like, yeah, you should take some risk while you're young before you start. I think the terminology he used was like collecting a wife and a house and like all these things, which is
Collecting
kind of an interesting
responsibilities, yeah.
collecting responsibilities. But yeah, interesting way to phrase it. But that's good, man. So just in terms of the content too,
Yep.
long form, short form. I know the one thing that you were posting about recently. I don't know how recently it was, but
Mhm.
like breaking up a long form podcast into more maybe 10 to 15 minute clips.
Yep.
What are your thoughts around that? Like is that something that you suggest for creators or for Adam even? You know?
Yeah, I would say so, especially for TikTok and YouTube, especially because TikTok you could post up to 10-minute videos now. I believe it may be even longer now, but you could post at least 10-minute videos. Uh, Especially with you have good native text on there, which is like that little text on the screen that we call that native text. I think that it allows you to expand on a topic more without having to cut so much out in short form and editing. Like anyone could go into an hour long podcast and rip like 4 10-minute clips and just post them. Same with YouTube, except you probably need a title and thumbnail, obviously. But it's much easier than cutting it down from, you could cut down 10-minute clips instead of like 4 30-second clips that you have to take real time and edit. It's a lot easier to lift, especially if you have a smaller team or if you're running a podcast by yourself. And you could also get more eyes on YouTube if you and lead it more to the longer form of the interview.
How important are the thumbnails and the titles and even hashtags for
Title and
YouTube?
thumbnail is everything. Packaging is extremely huge on Instagram. If you don't title it correctly, you probably won't reach anybody. Like, for example, having an episode number in your title on YouTube, like, doesn't really do a ton. It should be more about like the guest and who is on the podcast. But thumbnail is everything too. Like, they're both so important, but it's thumbnail especially because that's the first thing people see. And you should be testing, if you can, at least three. YouTube gives you that option to test three thumbnails, and it'll give you which one performed best and let you ride with that the rest of the time. But thumbnail, title, it's sometimes even more important than the first 30 seconds of the video, because you're not going to get anybody to click on the video if they aren't intrigued by the title and the thumbnail.
Dude, I got to work on my thumbnails. I'm pretty sure they stink. At least on
I'll set you
YouTube.
up with some designers.
Yeah. You know, a guy.
I do.
What about so that the problem for me, and like maybe this is something that you have experiences with people you work for, is just the time. You know, are there tools that you use to kind of shortcut that a little bit, or maybe post to different platforms at the same time, and just like figuring out how to navigate that? You know, like how do you think about that time for yourself?
You mean in terms of just posting everything, or
Just
like?
posting, or maybe even before that, yeah, like
Yeah, I think
the coming up with a thumbnail,
posting, we
yeah.
post everything on, like, I'll go in and literally click post on everything we do. We have somebody that helps out with the um, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, Threads, and Facebook, and then I do Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. but we're posting on those platforms 5, 6, 7, sometimes even usually on a Friday before a game, 8 times a day. And we go in and do them all natively on the platform. In terms of like our processes, we manage everything in Basecamp. It's very easy to use. And we do use Google Drive for like some longer form stuff, but our Basecamp is basically our big project management tool. And Basecamp is great because it allows you to have an app on the phone that you could download everything in full quality. And it's very easy to use. That's really the basic reason. And it's cheap. So.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt either. Yeah.
I know.
Okay. So on a personal level too,
Yep.
I was going back and just clicking through some of your, what are they? I don't even know the terminology. The thumbnails are on Instagram or the highlights.
Yes.
So
yes.
you were talking about for yourself, it was like an annual review, right? You were thinking like,
Yep.
what didn't you do? I think it was in 2023 or 2022. I forget the year, but you were like, what didn't you do because of fear? Which I thought is an interesting question, right? And you were like, make more content, which I'm sure you're putting out more content than most, but you're like, put ideas out because of lack of conviction. Like these are just some of the things that I was reading. Do you think you've progressed in any of those, or like what have you made strides in 24? I'm curious.
I think I'm curious. I can't believe you brought that up. I kind of remember doing that. Shout out to Hill Bloom. That's where I got that. But yeah, I think the ideas and convictions thing. I think I've gotten a little bit better because I've been more confident in like growing Adam's brand is like, okay, like now I act like I do really know what I'm doing. That was kind of like, I was kind of feeling like imposter syndrome. But now I think I'm more confident in what I'm actually saying because I've done it, which is like stacking proof that I'm sure you've heard Adam say 1,000 times from Alex Hormozy. But I think I've done a better job of putting out content. This is podcast. I'm probably going to put out some content too, so that'll be great. But I think I've been able to wrap my thoughts more concisely than I used to, because I used to like record videos like kind of green screens like I did, and they'd be like 4 minutes long, and I'm like, no one's going to watch this. Like, why am I even doing this? But now I kind of have gotten better at, I think, speaking on camera and definitely concising my thoughts too, because one thing that we're kind of doing now is expanding our team. And I've talked to a lot of people every day, and trying to be a better communicator and being a concise communicator where here's the details you need in the shortest amount of text possible. I think I've gotten better at that too, because I've always thought I've been a pretty good communicator, both in my life and at work. So I think being more concise in my communication has helped me get the conviction in the content that I need.
I love that, man. That's it. That's a good answer. I'm pretty sure what did I ask Adam? I was like, what do you want to get better at? And he was like, communicating to my team.
Yeah. So, yeah. We're still working on it.
There you
still
go.
Work in progress.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. That's good. So, and then I'm curious to ask you about too, because it's so easy to get sucked in to the computer, right? The computer. Yeah. I have my iPad, I have my phone, and you're in this stuff as a profession. Like this is what you're doing.
Yeah, my screen time is horrific. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so is mine. It's bad. How do you? I mean, can you disconnect? Like, what do you do for that, if anything?
It's very hard to. Thank you. It's very hard to, but the best advice I could give from what I do is I try to go on Do Not Disturb. That's about all I could do. I truly do have like an addiction to my phone, and it's like not good, but like. That's kind of like what my job is. So I don't really have a choice. I mean, my girlfriend says it all the time. Like, you're always on your phone. I can't tell if you're working or just scrolling on Twitter or like whatever. So trying to disconnect is definitely something that I want to work on, because I have not been really good at it ever since I started in this. And it's definitely something I could improve on in the future.
Gotcha. I'm sure your answer is that you're working. That's got to be it.
Yeah. I mean, it usually is in all honesty, but Sometimes I'm on Twitter. I'm going to see what my screen time is.
It's tough, man. It really is tough, especially
especially on my. Now I'm blessed enough that like Thomas, our video editor, who's an absolute I mean, he edits 5-6 videos a day. Like, he's a monster. He is stuck at his computer, but I can kind of go wherever I want with this. But I can't imagine having to sit at my computer all day, because I literally will take every call that I take. I walk literally just around my apartment because I can't sit still. But I think it's great that I can at least do it from my phone. I'm sorry about that, Thomas.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, Thomas.
Thomas wants to get on the pod too, so
there you go. All right, we'll get him on here at some point. So let me just, and I know we'll wrap up here in a few, but what is like a realistic day look like for you then? Just in terms of, I mean, you're pumping out a ton of content. I'm just like, for somebody who sees Adam's content and thinks that it's really good, which, you know, it is, but then they don't really understand like the behind the scenes. What goes into that? What goes into that?
Yeah. When we first started, we were only posting 2 videos a day. So really like wasn't crazy. But once Thomas and I both went full time with him last year, we really ramped it up to like 3 to 4. Now we're at like anywhere from 5 to 7 to 8. But typically what will happen is Adam will shoot, usually it's the night before, and then we'll edit the videos the next day. And Thomas will fully edit the video. We usually don't have any feedback because we've been working together for so long that like he really knows what Adam likes, which kudos to him, because it's sometimes Adam, obviously, like he said, isn't the greatest communicator of what he wants, but he obviously has a lot going on. But I think Thomas does a very good job editing. So he will edit the full video, send it to me. I'll double check the grammar on it, and then I will download it, write copy for it, send it to Adam. And what we've been doing kind of recently, because like I said, Adam has a ton on his plate, is like I'll send it to him. If it's a video that I know that he'll want approved, like a clip with Coach Franklin, for example, I'll wait for him to approve that. But if it's just like him talking about the something in the Big Ten, like I kind of just give him an hour or two, and if he doesn't answer, I post it, because one of the things you can't do on organic social is post like 4 videos every 30 minutes. Like that's just like you get basically like no views. Like it's really not a good thing to do. But that's kind of like the process every day, and kind of doing that, like I said, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. And then making sure that the copy is actually good and engaging, which we're working on. Could be better, I think, especially on Twitter and LinkedIn. But making sure the video is good is really the main job too. So that's kind of, at least with the content side part of it. But then like organizing our scripts, talking to brand partners that we have. Like we had a campaign go live today, so making sure everything's right with that, because you know that's like how we make some of our money. Writing scripts to send off to brands to approve, helping Adam with invoices, reaching out to brands to get new partnerships, making sure we're getting our graphics out about like his teams of the week, coaches of the week, top players. If he's calling a game, we have graphics made for those for the next week. Newsletter goes out twice a week, so making sure that goes out Tuesday and Thursday, and helping people get on his schedule that are important and need to get on his schedule too. So a lot, that's basically what goes all into a day. It's all varies at the times, but usually anywhere from like 7:30, 8 o'clock till like, I won't be at my computer late at night, but anywhere till like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, usually.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, making sure that the post-game podcast with Adam gets scheduled.
Yeah. So, yeah, basically making sure he gets on it. That's the first part.
Yeah, there you go. So, well, cool, man. This is interesting. I mean, it's just something that's only going to get bigger, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like, what is the future of just content? Because I feel like there's almost I want to say a negative connotation around it, but you hear content creator and you immediately are like, I don't know. Yeah. What are your, what do you think about the future of it?
I think it's going to get harder, especially on organic, because more people are trying to become a content creator. So I think you really have to know, first of all, what you want at your end goal. You have to start, if you're doing social, you got to have like something you're working towards, because whether that's, I want to sell this protein powder, I want to get leads for my agency. Like you got to have some sort of end game, so you're always working towards it, because if you don't, you're not going to want to do it. And the only way to grow in social is consistency. And that's what's going to separate you apart. I mean, we haven't missed a post in 2.5 years every day, Christmas, Easter, whatever. So it's going to get harder. You have to stay more consistent, and more volume you could do, the better. So consistency, volume, and knowing what your end goal is really going to separate you, because like I said, it's going to get harder to become a true content creator, especially as like I could pick up my phone and try and be a creator now, but not everybody has the skill for it, and it's hard. So
yeah, man. Yeah, the consistency. Yeah, that's kind of a consistent theme that comes up just from talking to people on here. They're like, yeah, you can do something for a little bit, but if you're not consistent with it and you don't, continue to pursue it, then what's the point? So
it's like people that people want to, like, former athletes will be like, oh, I posted like 4 times and like, why hasn't it worked? It's like, okay, when you benched at 14 years old, where you're repping 225 like you did at the draft, like, no, like it takes consistency and time. Like that's the biggest thing, is patience. Like that's all it is, especially with social.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's cool. So, all right, Noah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on here.
This is great. I appreciate it.
I know we're giving Adam a hard time, but he's a busy man, and he's got a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of it is a testament to the team behind him.
We could do a whole other podcast on all the stuff going on.
Oh man, I know. We'll do that at some point, but yeah, man. I'm excited to keep following you guys. If people want to just either follow AB or just look into more of what you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah, my Instagram's _Stauffer_. I really don't post many other places, which is another thing I should be doing. And then I started a newsletter, Creator COO, where I'm kind of breaking down what's going on in Adam's companies and kind of our social strategy, like trying to really brand myself as the Creator COO and helping him operate his companies. So both of those places are probably the best place.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, I checked out the newsletter. It's good stuff. Yeah,
appreciate it.
Keep with it, man. Consistency, like you're talking about. Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, appreciate it, Joe. This is great.
All right, Noah. You got it, man. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Cool. Thank you.